belonging is the foundation of wellness. When kids feel seen, when they feel like they are a part of something, wellness comes naturally because they're engaged, they participate, they ask questions, they think critically, they're present.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the P.L.A.Y. Wellness Podcast. Today, we're talking about something that has the power to help shape how we can continue creating schools and spaces where every child has the opportunity to feel like they belong. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Shannon Milliken, founder and executive director of P.L.A.Y Education. P.L.A.Y stands for Please Learn as You, and Shannon has partnered with schools and communities across Colorado, including right here in Erie, to help create more inclusive, supportive environments where young people can thrive. As a former physical education teacher and a mom, Shannon's passion for her work comes from both her personal and professional experiences, her own upbringing, her family, and the time she has spent in classrooms and at the Colorado Department of Education inspired her to start P.L.A.Y with the goal of helping create positive, lasting change. Shannon, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the P.L.A.Y Wellness Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story with you all and what the great work that we're doing in Erie.
Well, I am very inspired. You are a go-getter. For all of the families that don't know about P.L.A.Y, I'm really excited for you to share. Before we dive into P.L.A.Y, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you. What led you to this work and what made you feel called to start an organization like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. P.L.A.Y is this long-term vision dream that I have had where if you were to ask me, what would you do if you weren't afraid? It would be building this organization. I've had to navigate within myself as a person, but also as a professional, that I am somebody who can make systems change and make the world a better place. And so it really started from this kind of combination of my personal journey and my professional journey. Personally, I am a transracial Korean adoptee. Transracial meaning that I was born in Korea and adopted by two white parents. I was raised here in Centennial, which is kind of like Aurora, so middle class white suburbia. And unfortunately, I didn't have the experiences where multiculturalism or the way that I looked really impacted the way that I was brought up. And so for my whole entire life, I've navigated through the systems of living a very privileged, affluent lifestyle without having the conversations of, Shannon, you look different than the majority of people that walk the streets in your neighborhood, and therefore you will be treated differently, you will be seen differently, you will experience things that you won't have language for, and that's all normal.
When could you actually kind of start to identify what you were actually feeling?
That's a great question. Growing up, to answer your question, I never had the language. I didn't have the emotions. The emotions were this like, I'm confused. I don't know what to do with it. Nothing fits. So I'm going to make myself fit into what everybody says works, right? So I became the high achiever, the perfectionist, the people pleaser, right? There's probably people listening to this who are like, yep, I can identify with that, right? Those behaviors of see me, value me, right? Like I am worth being seen because I wasn't feeling seen because of simply the way that I looked. But as far as like being able to have language to talk about what I went through as a kid and how it's showing up in my behaviors and how I react to things and how I think about the world, I didn't navigate that until probably about 2020. And because I didn't have somebody walking me through that, as a child, I internalized that of I'm the problem. Something is wrong with me. I'm not doing something right. And so I think like I have taken this personal kind of these feelings of like, oh my gosh, like who was the adult that I needed growing up? And now being a mom to a biracial child. So for definition, her dad is white and I am, Korean. And so she looks like both of us. But if you were to put a picture right next to me and her, people would say that she's a mini me. And so I think for me, that internalizes of, oh my gosh, my child will identify as a girl of color in this world where systems that I really struggled in, she will struggle if these systems don't change. That is where this like innate mama bear mode of like, how do I protect my child? This organization to make a more inclusive world for children who don't fit society's norms or boxes. This is where this has come from, right? Is my selfishness of wanting to make the world a better place for my child, but also recognizing that if I can be her champion, there are other children out there to at no fault of their own need a champion. I can be that through my professional experience, through education, through learning about how children learn, how adults learn, how to educate, how to bridge two different sides and have compassion and empathy. I'm able to help us navigate these harder conversations that these children need in order to grow up in these thriving environments that don't necessarily fit the needs of all children right now.
And what are the different roles that you feel like have really kind of helped shape what you're bringing to play? If you can kind of just share, like you said, you were a physical educator, or I said that you were a physical education teacher,
Yep.
and then working in different organizations.
Yeah, so I definitely am kind of like a jack of all trades, right? Jack or Jane of all trades. But started out as a physical education teacher, worked my way up through the field of physical education and health as a leader. I was the first woman of color as the president of our state association that serves all PE and health educators and programs in the state of Colorado. From there, I went to the Department of Education, where I oversaw federal and state grants around student wellness. That really opened up my eyes to the work that P.L.A.Y is kind of continuing. But from there, like I've always been huge into advocacy. So just like understanding federal budgets and how it comes down to the state budgets, how it goes into the school systems. So just like little things of an experiences that I've had have really led me to this point where I'm able to say, I feel very confident in not necessarily through an education or academia standpoint, but through the lived experiences that I can say, I can share the story and somebody is going to resonate because it's a lived experience. They may not be able to say, okay, because I'm Asian and because I'm an adoptee and because I'm a mom, I can resonate with your story, but I can resonate with that feeling of not belonging. I can resonate with being a people pleaser my entire life. I can resonate with, feeling alone during my childhood, right? And it's in those moments when we can find empathy and connection with others that allow us to learn from each other to create a more inclusive world for others who are different than us.
So if a parent in Erie has never heard of P.L.A.Y before, how would you describe it with what your organization does in simple terms for them?
Yeah. So
simple terms. You guys do so many amazing things.
We're both laughing because I'm like, I don't know if simple is in my language, but I will do the best that I can. So our work is really twofold. So when it comes down to it, we are about creating environments where children can learn, grow, and thrive just as they are. And that can be in the schools or within the community. So within the schools, we really focus on building infrastructure around healthy, learning, inclusive environments. And so that is, we don't have a curriculum of our own. We are literally going into schools and helping them identify needs and gaps within whole child school health policies and processes that have been created by entities that are content experts. So through hospitals, foundations, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Colorado Department of Education, they are the ones who have identified what these best practices are. And through those best practices, when we find needs or gaps, we then use our connections to be able to connect them with partners within the community or nationally that help them address these gaps. And then what makes us very unique and different is it's not a, oh, hey, so-and-so meets so-and-so, okay, bye, right? It's no, learn about the school community, learn about these students, learn about the families that the school is serving. And when you bring in this program, how do you shift or tweak your resource or your curriculum or your tool to make sure that it is meeting all the needs of the student population or the community members that school is serving? Because the one size fits all, that's where we are losing our children who fall through the gaps, who don't meet the criteria of certain things. And so it's so important that we help navigate that entire implementation phase And then we start to look at, okay, how do we sustain this? Because we don't want our kids' health to be reliant on grant funding, which is currently where this work sits right now. Foundations, hospitals, government entities have worked on obesity prevention and whole child school health in the past, and it was through grant funding, which is great. But now, as priorities have shifted and as funding is being cut, these are the first things to go. And so now millions of dollars that have gone into investing into school health no longer exists. So we go in and we try to work with these schools to ensure that the programs that we bring to the school community are sustained for the long term. And then I think what also makes us very unique in the community sense is we're noticing that there are silos, right? There's like this kind of nonprofit sector, there's the business sector, there's the school sector, there's public health sector, and there's nothing that's really kind of bridging all of it together. And so we really kind of see ourselves as this connector in the community of who is it that's needing the support and who has the available resources, whether that's access, financial, mobilization of items. How do we connect them and physically get them connected to make sure that they get the services that they need? Because we're noticing there's so much of a gap of, hey, I offer these services. Hey, I need these services. And then what happens? Mm-hmm. Nothing. So you need someone to actually facilitate that connection to happen. And that's what we do in the community is we're connecting those families or those individuals who need the resources with the actual resources itself and make sure that connection happens.
One phrase that I keep seeing on your website is whole child wellness. So that's something we talk about a lot on this podcast, but what does that actually look like in a child's everyday life?
When you think about measurables or outcomes, it is student-centered, meaning the student is in the center of everything that happens. And they call them tenets. And so if a child is healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged, we would consider that a healthy child. Play then inserts ourselves and says, okay, who do we know in our toolbox over here that can specialize in A, B, and C? Great, let's make that connection, and now let's get to work.
Can you paint a picture of, for our listeners, just of like one thing that you've done where you've kind of helped all of those connecting pieces come together to impact something?
Yeah, sure. So one of the really cool things that we did is another mom and I collaborated during, it was September or October last year when SNAP benefits had been discontinued. And it was impacting some of the families that went to my daughter's school. And so this mom was like, how do we create a Facebook group? And so we ended up creating this Erie Grocery Buddies group that was, it wasn't the food bank, so we weren't helping hundreds and hundreds of families. But what we were able to do is we were able to say, okay, who needs help? Who is willing to help? And then as the facilitators, we literally connected the person who said, hey, I could use some hot meals. And then the family who said, hey, I'm making meals. And we literally said, here's this person's phone number. They're going to be dropping something off on this day at this time. What's your address? What are you comfortable sharing? Sometimes it was, we were able to connect them like by Messenger, by Facebook Messenger. But there were also times when like that person didn't have a car. And so I would physically go and pick up the meal and deliver it to the family. And I think what that offered us was this insight into, okay, yeah, community food banks are awesome, but this family that didn't have transportation, how are they going to get to the community food bank? Mm-hmm. And so while this Erie Grocery Buddies group, it served 40 families. And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, like compared to the hundreds and hundreds of families that food banks serve, like it's not a lot. But those 40 families were families that didn't have food. They didn't know where they were going to get food. They were in survival mode. And I can't imagine what it was like to literally know that somebody was willing to go and get food and bring it to your doorstep when you are like, I don't know where I'm going to feed my family the next day. And so I think like that's kind of this mindset that we have for P.L.A.Y is that we aren't in the masses, right? Like we are not going to be impacting by the thousands and thousands, but we are going to find that family or that one kiddo, and we will help them get whatever it is that they need, whether it's services, whether it's resources, whether it's a place of belonging. that is what makes us very unique in the sense, because we are so committed to making sure that people know that their authentic selves are what is what we want to see. We're not asking you to fit a box and, oh, if you fit this box, we will help you. It is, what do you need? How can we support you? You tell us, and then we will help mobilize that for you.
How do you prioritize what you're going to start working on, and what, issues kind of come up, and how you can help that particular person or help that group of people?
Because we are so broad in the work that we do, is we go to where the need is at. And so that could be food benefits, right? And then everything got back to a sense where people had their benefits again. So do we keep the Erie Grocery Buddies still going? It's still there, but it's not facilitated in the same way. But it is now set up as a system so that if SNAP benefits do go away again, which there is talk about, coming this fall, asylum seekers, immigrants, refugees, their SNAP benefits will be taken away. We have 20% of Erie's population are communities of color. Do we know if they're on SNAP benefits or not? Do we know if they're immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers? Like, we don't know. Like, that's part of the work. But I think just this awareness of knowing that this can be a possibility, knowing how it can impact our community, having those systems in place, that's what the important work is. So not necessarily saying that we are committed to always serving this community indefinitely,
Yeah.
right? We pivot and we move to where the need is. And so, like, a lot of people, we are very involved in supporting the LGBTQIA plus community here in Erie, but in general, I think a lot of people sometimes confuse the fact that they might think that we are like an LGBTQIA plus advocacy nonprofit, which we have to be very clear, like, that's not who we are. But we do recognize that specifically in Erie, there have been narratives around the support of this community needing additional support. They need the advocates, they need the education. And so that's where we have seen a need in this town where we're like, okay, we can help create these spaces for this very particular community. Now, if we were to go into, let's say, Denver, there might not be that support or that need, but they might need some more support around, again, refugees, immigrants, asylum seekers. They might need more support around building playful play structures, right? And redesigning their playscapes, right?
You're essentially going to kind of create these, I don't know what you call them, but projects that you can pull them out of your toolkit when you need them. And depending on what community you're working with, you just have different tools to be able to help them.
Yeah. And so another great example of that would be, so like, for example, in the school. So I kind of gave you like the community perspective from a school perspective. So like, one of the programs that we implemented at our pilot school, which is in St. Vrain, is a Tower Garden program. That was to specifically address the need around healthy eating environments. That Tower Garden has now become not only like a space where 600 kids get exposure to different fruits and veggies throughout like different periods of the school year. It also supplies our lettuce for our staff wellness jars for a comprehensive staff wellness program for 75 plus teachers. It also is the catalyst for a student-led garden club, which has also created opportunities for parent engagement. Now, that program, a lot of people would be like, great, wrap it up, put it in a pretty bow, and like, that's what you give to other schools. We might go down to the school that is literally 3 miles down the way, and they have a community garden. So we wouldn't want to be like, oh, here, implement this Tower Garden program into your school. We would be like, okay, you have a community garden. How is this already working? What do you need to make this succeed? Is it capacity? Is it people? Is it funding? Like, let's start having those conversations. And I think like that's what makes it very unique and different in the sense of it's not a one size fits all.
So what type of schools and communities do you ideally want to get involved in? And is it elementary, middle, high school? And then what type of community groups?
So that's a great question. I think a lot of people would assume that we would only be working in like Title I, high poverty, high need areas. And while I think yes, and The more affluent areas is where some of our work is most desperately needed right now because of the education and the awareness that needs to be brought into the community. And that's not to say that people are bad people at all. That is simply to say that unless it's impacting us, sometimes we have no idea what's happening. When we bring these issues to a community, not necessarily because it's the majority, but because it is impacting a small percentage of your community. And those members of your community deserve to have a space where they feel seen, heard, validated, like they belong, like they are a part of your community. Those people matter just as much. Where we kind of sit and where we're navigating is in these high populated areas where there is so much need. That is where there are supports, right? There are larger organizations that have resources and the ability to make that impact. Where right now we are such a smaller organization able to just be in these tiny little communities. I think it's exactly where we need to be right now, because when we can be catalysts of best practices, we can influence so much more. We don't have a prescription of what schools we will be in or the communities that we will serve. Really, it does take a co-champion. So it is somebody that's like, we believe in this work. We want this work to be happening in our community. What do you need from us? Right. And then it's working together, and it's a collaboration, and it's messy, and there's no roadmap right now. That's part of it. Is we have tried to roadmap this, and we can't roadmap people's authenticity. And so we need to be flexible enough to be able to say what we've been doing has not worked for everybody in the past. So not how do we get rid of what hasn't been working, but how do we just create space for an and also.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a quick break from today's episode to hear a word from one of our sponsors. Additional support for today's episode comes from Bridge Refill Market, Erie's local refill shop, helping families reduce waste one refill at a time. As of May 2026, the community has helped save over 28,440 containers from the landfill through refills at the shop. From laundry detergent and dish soap to organic bulk foods and personal care products, you can bring your own containers and refill only what you need. Learn more at bridgerefill.com. Now let's get back to today's conversation. So I'd really like to talk a little bit more about what are the things P.L.A.Y is doing inside of our local community. So I know you specifically have been working with Black Rock Elementary. So when did you start working with them? How did that all start?
Yeah, so this next school year that we are going into will be our third year at Black Rock. And this is the process that we would do with any school, but I made a connection with the PE teacher. And in most cases, it is usually the PE teacher, but it could be a parent, it could be an administrator. But the first thing is admin buy-in, because I have noticed that when you go into a school or into a district, if you do not have administration buy-in, you're already wasting so much of your capacity and bandwidth and resources fighting those issues, right? That administrators need to, in their lens, need to prioritize. And so I approached the PE teacher, just said, hey, what would you think about creating a school health advisory council? This is what it would be like. Do you want to go have a conversation with your principal? And so she had a meeting with the principal. Principal was completely on board. And what we've done over the last 2 years is we have created what's called a school health advisory council. It is a diverse group of stakeholders that care about this specific school community. So we have teachers, we have community members, we have UC Health Hospital that joins our meetings every now and then. We actually are making a collaboration with another school, which has never been done before. So that's your school health advisory council. And from there, we've identified needs and gaps within our best practices. So our kind of components that Black Rock really focused on was employee wellness, general policies and communication, nutrition services and environments, physical activity and physical education, and social emotional climate. And so from there, we have developed programs that are completely sustainable outside of district funding. And so I mentioned the Tower Garden earlier. We have developed a student-led kindness club that is K through 5. These are really cool clubs because not only are they student led, but they are some of the very first opportunities where kinder through third grade students have an opportunity to be a part of a before and after school club. A lot of times I think the saying is kids are too young. And we were like, let's create an opportunity for kids to be, part of choosing how kids are getting served their fruits and vegetables and what issues do they see in the school or in the community that they want to fix. Mm-hmm. And one of those examples was so cool. It was a second grader in Kindness Club, and we were just like, what's a problem that you see here at the school? And her initial response was, well, we don't put away our recess equipment. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's understandable. And then she takes it a step further and she goes, and so then teachers are having to spend their own money to replace our equipment. And then she takes it even a step further and says, and teachers aren't paid enough. And they shouldn't have to be spending their money on play equipment for us. So she literally, the second grader, an 8-year-old, has literally identified a systemic issue because she was given the opportunity to think critically about a problem within her community. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about belonging, or we talk about creating a space where you feel seen or heard, could you imagine what that felt like as an 8-year-old, someone who usually is told, like, you're young, you're little, you're all these things, and to have somebody be like, holy cow, I can't believe, like, that is just so incredible that you thought of that. The confidence booster that probably gave that child is going to impact her for the rest of her life, to be able to say, I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to share what I'm thinking. I was empowered by somebody simply because I was given an opportunity to voice my thoughts in an after-school club. Mm-hmm. Another cool thing that we have going on at BlackRock is our Wellness Positivity Cart. So this has been something that has been an initiative this last year where in addition to the incredible PTO events that our PTO does for staff, not staff wellness, for staff appreciation, and also for parent-teacher conferences, we wanted to give teachers a little pick-me-up like throughout the year. And so we have this utility cart that goes around. It's got healthy snacks, a self-care item, and like a classroom item. So that could be an incentive for your treasure box, or it could be like a fidget toy or something that you use in your calming corner. And every other week, the teachers get this simple order form. They submit their preferences. We then have, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's kids from the Kindness Club. They come and they like pack the bags. The bags have been made by our Rock Pile kids. So again, our before and after school kiddos get to be a part of the process. We go green, so there's a way that they can recycle the bags. But then we've been partnering with our counselor who has identified kids who benefit from positive adult interactions. And these children are the ones who are going around and delivering these bags to teachers every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And the feedback that we have gotten is just incredible. Of this kid has a really hard time, engaging with adults, and they had a smile on their face all day. This kid was asking me, when do I get to deliver bags to the teachers again? This kid, got to see his brother's teacher who he doesn't normally get to interact with. This student didn't got to see their third grade teacher, and now they're in fifth grade. These little tiny moments of connection, right? That can mean so much to a child that we take for granted, right? That are now opportunities where these children feel seen for who they are. And then I think the last piece to that wellness positivity card is we actually created a certificate where these kids get to take a certificate home that says that I contributed I was part of service in contributing health and wellness to my teachers. So many times, these kids sometimes are labeled, right? They're labeled as the disruptors. They're labeled as the bad kid. And that's just not accurate. And we recognize that there are so many times that these kids, when communication goes home, it's not usually positive. So this was a way for us to kind of infiltrate that system and change that narrative for them to say, you are contributing to something good. And you're helping teachers be better people. How many times, if you're helping a kid up on the playground, that's one thing. But when you get to be a part of service in making the world a better place for your teacher, that's a really cool thing to say as a kid.
Mm-hmm. And our kids are so smart. Even that second grader, she's like, I know that teachers don't have the money to be able to do this, but
Yeah.
so that's
And then the other really cool thing that BlackRock has done, when I talked a little bit about this earlier about sustainability, was we know that this funding is not guaranteed. We know that. But these programs that we are developing are so essential to the well-being and the culture of this school that we created something that was called Camp Discovery. And so it's a summer camp expo that is hosted at BlackRock, so you don't have to worry about the barriers to get to it. We have between 26 and 32 local camps that come and showcase their camps. And these are like the smaller camps, right? Like the ones that are niche to a very specific interest area. And so not only are we supporting the ecosystem of small businesses and economics by allowing these small businesses to promote their businesses, but it also allows these kids to have exposure to affordable summer care options that might make them feel seen. Whether that's through bird camps, STEM camps, music camps, Lego camps, whatever that is, it's just one more opportunity that allows them to feel seen and heard. And the $100 vendor fee that we charge, which really isn't that big compared to other vendor spaces, that is what pays for these programs to continue. So we are not reliant upon P.L.A.Y funding. P.L.A.Y this third year is going to slowly start to work its way out, and all of these programs will be completely sustained without us continuing to be there. And that's the vision.
Mm-hmm.
We want these programs and this infrastructure to be in schools thriving on their own.
So, if every parent listening today remembered just one thing about raising healthy, resilient kids, what would you hope that it would be?
I think it would be that belonging is the foundation of wellness. When kids
Mm-hmm.
feel seen, when they feel like they are a part of something, wellness comes naturally because they're engaged, they participate, they ask questions, they think critically, they're present. And it's when all of those things happen that opportunities present themselves, right? To be healthy, active individuals. But kids need to feel like they are a part of something to begin with. They need to feel comfortable with who they are, and they need to be in environments that they feel are accepting to them, not from what we feel, because we can all day say, we feel like we have created a space of belonging for you, but do those kids feel it? And that is going to be essential to everything, whether that's in the schools, whether that's in the community, whether it's in your own home, whether it's in a camp that you go to, whether it's in your circle of friends. Kids have to feel like they are seen for who they truly are and feel brave enough to step into that space.
Mm-hmm. So, P.L.A.Y is really built on a lot of partnerships. So, if someone is listening and wants to get involved, whether they're a parent, teacher, business owner, or someone who simply cares about our growing community, what opportunities are available?
That's a great question, too. So, lots of different ways. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're at a point now where we're growing, where there are opportunities for you to be engaged. So, whether that's volunteering at an event, whether that's coming and participating at an event and then also volunteering, like that's an option. Of course, if you always want to be, a financial donor and support us that way, we always, appreciate that. But I think also it's not being afraid to engage in the work that doesn't directly impact you, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of times when you think about charities or foundations or nonprofits, you give to an organization that is directly impacting you, whether that's at your kid's school or the American Heart Association, you had somebody that went through their treatment, something that is very near and dear to you. And I think for me, what I ask people to consider is P.L.A.Y is something so much larger than all of us combined. Like, it has the potential to bring people together when we are so divided right now. But it will take risk. It will take the unknown. It will take uncomfortability, right? And I invite people to step into that space and to join me and the other volunteers who want to be a part of that on this journey. It's messy, it's not clear, but it's also what makes it very beautiful. And so just engaging, whether that is through monetarily showing up as a volunteer, spreading the word, talking about it, sharing your experiences, following us on Facebook, all of those algorithm things, right? But I think it's just engaging. It's engaging in the work, even when it gets uncomfortable, because that's the work, is it's uncomfortable, but it will change the way that we see ourselves, that we see each other, that we see our community. And I think it's what we need right now. We need something new and we need something different.
So for someone who's listened to our conversation, can you give examples? Like, you're an educator who's listening to this conversation. Like, why don't we bring up, like, does our school need it's school health advisory board, right? That's one of the
council, also known as shacks.
Okay. Like, do we need one of those? I'm a teacher. I'd love to share what the Kindness Club is, or a parent, like, Kindness Club. That sounds amazing. How can I share this with my school to see if we can get a Kindness Club? Like, what are some of the other ideas of people in our community that might be listening to this conversation and how they can get it?
Yeah, so I think you've touched on something really interesting about wanting to get involved. So if like they've heard and they're like, yes, we want a Kindness Club at our school, I mean, the first thing is to inquire, right? Like, it's to create a connection with either myself or someone on our team. And then we start having the conversation of, where are you currently at? What would you need for a Kindness Club? Do you have admin support? Because I think what makes Play really unique is we aren't going to go into a school just to be into a school. We want to change the culture and the infrastructure. And we need to know that people are committed, that they're going to be held accountable, that they're going to show up. And that just starts with conversations. And so if somebody has heard something that they're like, we like this, how do we get this in our school? How do we make this happen? Reach out and let's start a conversation. And I know that sounds so simple, and it's like, okay, you talked about so much. How can it be that simple? And that's literally what it is, because it's then talking about, what is it that you envision? What is it that you want for your community or your school or your student or your teachers? And then how can Play help you? Instead of us saying, we're going to make you a healthy school, right? Like, it is going to be that conversation of, what is it that you envision? What is it that you want? And here's how we can work together to make that happen.
So Shannon, what would success look like for Play like 5 years from now?
Great question. So I think success for us is we would be able to, we will have a thriving team. And what I mean by a team is a comprehensive group of individuals that have a various, set of skills that can bring an organization together to thrive, to make our mission and our vision happen, whether that's locally, whether that's statewide, nationally, internationally. But I think when we look at a capacity piece, right, the visions that we have of changing communities and systems, one person cannot do that. And so eventually we will need a team, and I call it my dream team, right? But it is having a comprehensive team that can go out and do this work wherever the work takes us, whatever the work is, but we have a team to be able to do it, and the capacity will never be an issue for us.
Well, I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing. And when did it start again? Like, when did Play like officially begin?
Like, I would say August 2024.
Okay. So really, you're coming up on your 2-year mark this fall. And to be honest, it's like, things take time. So to be at almost your 2-year mark and you're here, that's incredible. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I think just another thing to quickly mention, we had talked about, how do you get involved? So the way that our board works is, if you are wanting to be a board member on Play, contact me, reach out, be a part of the decision-making processes. As we grow, you will get to be a part of the hiring, the vision moving forward, the strategic plan. we are in this very vital moment of pivoting. Where do we really want play to go for the long haul? And being part of our board of directors gives you a voice in shaping that for the community. So if that is something that you're interested in, that's also a possibility for you to get involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And last question for you. Do you have any events where people can get involved and kind of just get a dose of like what play really is about?
Yeah, so we've got two really cool opportunities coming up this fall. So first and foremost, we have a back to school silent disco that is happening on August 21st. It is really to support our LGBTQIA plus youth as they go back to school, because we recognize that there is probably a lot of additional anxiety that community is facing. And so we want them to know that there are resources, that there is a community standing behind them. It's also uplifting another brand new nonprofit in Erie, specifically supporting LGBTQIA plus youth. And so really great opportunity to come and dance and party and get some good food. We'll have food trucks out there. We'll have LGBTQIA plus vendors and businesses there as well. And then in October, we're partnering with Bridge Street Books and Music. We are going to be doing Band Book Bingo, where we are partnering with the businesses in Erie. So sponsorship opportunity if you're a local business and want to, have an opportunity to get a little bit of return on investment for a community activity. But people and families will be able to go and get a bingo card at participating locations. You go to different locations throughout Erie and just other small businesses. You get your card stamped. And if you make a bingo, you get to go to Bridge Street Books and Music and get a free book that is on the banned book list, which is, again, just reaffirming that it is so important for identities, whether that's gender, cultural, however else you want to identify, that they are being affirmed in the literature and in the stories that are being told. So really two great opportunities for you to get involved in the community. And we look forward to, seeing you at these great events.
Shannon, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your heart with our community. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing through Play Education and the difference you're making for children's families and schools across Colorado, and in particular right here in our local community as well.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right, friends, before we wrap up, here's the part I need to share. This podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. I'm just your friend behind the mic. Nothing shared on this podcast creates a patient relationship with any of our guests or replaces the guidance of your physician, professional coach, or other qualified expert. And the views shared by guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily reflect the beliefs or values of the Erie Wellness Podcast. My goal is to simply create a space for real, open conversations that help us all learn, grow, and feel a little more connected on our wellness journeys. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you back here next time.